On the roof of the world, where snow-capped peaks pierce the clouds and the air is thin enough to make you lightheaded, lies a river the locals call the Heavenly River, the Yarlung Zangbo. It begins in the glaciers of the Tibetan Plateau, winding its way through one of the most remote and breathtaking landscapes on Earth. For centuries, this river has been more than just water. It's been life itself. Stretching over 3,000 kilometers, it carves a path across China, India, and Bangladesh, sustaining millions of people along its course. In China alone, over 2,000 kilometers of this river flow through the rugged mountains of Tibet, carrying an estimated 140 billion cubic meters of water out of the country each year. But in recent months, this peaceful, almost mythical river has become the center of a storm. Not a natural one, but a geopolitical one. The Chinese government has announced an unprecedented plan to invest 1.2 trillion yuan, that's about 170 billion US dollars, to build 5 giant cascade hydropower stations along the river. When complete, this project could become one of the largest hydropower systems in the world. Yet, as soon as this plan was unveiled, tension rippled downstream. In India, government officials and media outlets began sounding the alarm, warning that China could use the project to control water flows, even weaponize it, putting millions of lives and livelihoods in danger. Soon after, Western media picked up the story, joining the criticism and warning of irreversible ecological damage. So the question arises, why is India so sensitive about this project? And from China's perspective, what deeper motivations are driving such an enormous investment in such a remote and difficult region? To answer that, we first need to understand what this river truly means, not just to China's engineers and policymakers, but to the people who live along its banks, who have depended on its waters for generations. To understand why China values the Yarlung Zangbo so deeply, we have to look at how it shapes life in Tibet. This river isn't just a natural wonder, it's the beating heart of the Tibetan Plateau. Its fertile valleys, especially in the middle reaches, are known as the granary of Tibet. Here, thousands of small farms depend on its steady flow to grow hardy crops like highland barley, potatoes, and wheat. In an environment where the land is high and the air is thin, agriculture can be tough. But the Yarlung Zangbo has always been the great equalizer, its waters turning otherwise dry land into productive farmland. Without it, much of central Tibet would be uninhabitable. Over the past 20 years, China has invested heavily in water conservancy projects along this river and its tributaries. Hydropower stations such as Xiong and Zangmu were among the early successes. They didn't just generate clean electricity, they also provided flood control, irrigation, and jobs for thousands of locals. These projects transformed the region's economy. Villages that once relied purely on subsistence farming now enjoy stable electricity, better roads, and even tourism income. The local grid became more reliable, supporting schools, hospitals, and industries that once struggled with power shortages. But despite these achievements, engineers noticed something striking: the untapped potential of the Yarlung Zangbo itself. This river, with its massive flow and steep drops, holds enormous hydropower capacity, much of it still unused. So, from a strategic standpoint, it was only a matter of time before China began thinking bigger, far bigger. If small hydropower projects could lift entire communities, what could a mega project do for Tibet's energy future, and even for China's broader clean energy goals? That question led to a vision that would soon evolve into one of the most ambitious hydropower projects in human history. In July this year, something historic yet quietly symbolic happened in Linsi City, deep within the Tibet Autonomous Region. There was no massive ceremony or global media coverage, just a group of engineers, local officials, and construction workers gathered in the mountains. But what they marked that day could reshape the future of Asia's water and energy landscape. It was the groundbreaking ceremony for one of the largest hydropower projects ever attempted, an investment worth 1.2 trillion yuan, or roughly 170 billion US dollars. The plan? To build 5 giant cascade hydropower stations along the Yarlung Zangbo River, each one harnessing the immense force of the river's flow as it descends through the Himalayas. To put this into perspective, once completed, the combined installed capacity is expected to reach 60 to 70 million kilowatts. That's enough to generate 300 billion kilowatt hours of electricity each year, roughly equal to the annual power consumption of 300 million people. That means this single project could, in theory, power an entire country the size of the United States for a month, using only clean, renewable energy. The construction period is expected to take 10 to 15 years, with the first turbines spinning by 2030 and full production by 2035. By any measure, investment, scale, and technology, this is a world-class super project and a bold statement about China's ambition to lead in renewable energy. But the road ahead won't be easy. The Yarlung Zangbo cuts through one of the most difficult terrains on Earth: deep gorges, unstable rock layers, and unpredictable weather. For China's engineers, this is not just a construction challenge, it's a battle against nature itself. Still, if there's one thing history shows, it's that China rarely backs down from ambitious infrastructure. From the Three Gorges Dam to the Qinghai-Tibet Railway, the country has made a reputation for doing what others call impossible. And now, they're taking that same determination to the roof of the world, aiming to turn the Yarlung Zangbo into the next symbol of human engineering and national strength. But what makes this project truly fascinating isn't just its size. It's how China plans to build it, and the extraordinary engineering methods that could redefine what's possible in hydropower construction. If you look at a satellite image of the Yarlung Zangbo River, one part immediately stands out: the Great Bend. Here, the river performs a dramatic U-shaped turn as it curves around the Namcha Barwa Mountain, which is, honestly, one of the most imposing peaks in the Himalayas. From above, it looks like this massive loop of water just slicing through a wall of mountains. It's breathtaking, but also, well, treacherous. In this section, the straight line distance across the bend might be only a few dozen kilometers. Yet the river's actual path stretches for more than 200 kilometers. That means the water travels much farther, moving slowly through narrow gorges before it gains speed again downstream. For hydropower engineers, that's both a challenge and an opportunity. The longer and slower the river flows, the less potential energy is captured. But if you can shorten the route, you can dramatically increase the flow speed and water drop, which means, more electricity. So Chinese engineers came up with an audacious idea to cut the bend and straighten the river using tunnel water diversion. In simple terms, they plan to drill massive tunnels through the mountains, diverting the river's flow from the upstream side of the bend directly to the lower downstream point. Instead of winding 200 kilometers around the mountain, the water will travel through a tunnel of just a few dozen kilometers, generating huge pressure differences that can be harnessed for power. But this is honestly easier said than done. The geological conditions here are brutal: towering cliffs, deep valleys, and rock formations hardened by millions of years of tectonic activity. Building surface dams or channels would not only be risky, but could also damage the fragile Himalayan ecosystem. To avoid that, engineers decided to work underneath the mountains. By drilling tunnels inside the rock, they can protect the surrounding landscape and wildlife, while still capturing the river's raw energy. It's a feat that combines engineering precision with environmental sensitivity, a kind of silent revolution deep under the plateau. If successful, this system will not only generate colossal amounts of clean electricity, but also serve as a global benchmark for hydropower innovation. Still, there's an even bigger question. Why is China pushing forward with such a difficult and costly project? especially when it's bound to stir controversy abroad. To understand that, we need to look at what this river and this project mean to China's energy strategy, economy, and national security. At first glance, this massive project might seem like a purely economic or engineering decision, but it's much more than that. For China, the Yarlung Zangbo hydropower project sits at the intersection of energy policy, environmental goals, and national strategy. In recent years, China has made a bold commitment to achieve what it calls its dual carbon goals, to reach peak carbon emissions before 2030 and become carbon neutral by 2060. That's an enormous challenge for the world's largest energy consumer, a country still heavily dependent on coal. Hydropower is one of the keys to changing that. And this project, with an estimated capacity of 60 to 70 million kilowatts, could generate about 300 billion kilowatt hours of electricity every year, all from clean, renewable water flow. That's enough power to replace 90 million tons of standard coal annually and cut 300 million tons of carbon emissions. To put that in perspective, that's like taking over 60 million cars off the road each year. But the benefits go far beyond clean energy. Building this project means new roads, new bridges, and new communication networks across one of China's most remote regions. It will create 50,000 to 100,000 jobs, boost local industries like logistics and construction, and inject life into Tibet's regional economy. Once the dam is operational, electricity will cost as low as 0.1 yuan per kilowatt hour, extremely cheap by any standard, attracting energy-hungry industries such as aluminum smelting, data centers, and manufacturing. Economists estimate that the project could add 20 billion yuan in annual fiscal revenue to Tibet, about two-thirds of the region's entire 2024 budget. That means more money for public services, development, and infrastructure, all powered by the river that's been flowing there for centuries. But there's another layer: national security and border control. The lower reaches of the Yarlung Zangbo are close to the Sino-Indian border, a region historically difficult for China to administer because of its terrain and isolation. By establishing large-scale projects, moving thousands of workers and resources there, and building new roads and facilities, China effectively strengthens its presence and control in this sensitive area. So, from Beijing's perspective, this isn't just about generating electricity. It's about energy independence, regional stability, and strategic influence, all wrapped into one project. However, while China views this as a pathway to progress, its neighbor to the south, India, sees something far more concerning: a potential threat to its most precious resource, water.